On potential tropical cyclone number 9 is still called that. It doesn't have a name yet. It will later on today. But it's waiting on getting itself a little bit better organized. That is the 3D imagery. It shows pretty good view here of what is developing out there with this system here this morning. Hurricane hunters are flying down in there right now as we speak to get more information on this storm. There is the low pressure center. It's down here just to the southwest of Grand Cayman, and like I said, right now the hurricane hunters are flying around. They haven't found anything greater than 36 miles per hour just yet, but that'll appear on the screen. It looks like they're flying into some of that convection there on the north side of the low. They'll probably find some stronger winds there, and also they'll find probably the lowest pressures there as well, because they're really searching for that low-level center. The hurricane hunters really help to pinpoint that. Once they get that information into the models, it really helps the models out, because it's so much easier to figure out where something is going if you know exactly where it's starting. So it's very critical. That's why they do it. It's moving to the northwest at 9. It's going to work its way into the Gulf of Mexico, rapidly intensify. All the conditions in the Gulf are basically perfect here in the southern Gulf for rapid intensification, so I fully anticipate that'll happen. It'll become a major hurricane and likely won't have much of a chance to weaken before landfall, so likely come in as a major hurricane in roughly the same spot as Idalia did just 1 year ago. These poor people are going to be seeing another major hurricane in roughly the same exact spot. If there's anything good about all this, this is once again a very rural part of the coastline, probably the least dense populated part of the coastline of all of Florida. We call it the nature coast. That's one good thing about it, but the bad thing is that it's very susceptible to storm surge, and they are looking at 10 to 15 feet of storm surge in spots, very similar to what they saw with Idalia last year. Here it goes. This is the GFS, or the American model, showing intensification as it works its way across the southern Gulf. That's 7 a.m. on Thursday morning. You can see it's basically due south of Apalachicola. It'll continue to work its way off to the north and west as we go through time on Thursday, and it'll make a landfall once again somewhere in Apalachee Bay on Thursday evening or maybe early Friday morning. And of course, the nastiest weather is always on the right-hand side of a hurricane. We're going to be on the back side of it, so to speak, getting north winds, offshore winds. We could get a few rain bands, don't get me wrong, out of that, but we're not going to be seeing tropical storm force winds most likely. That'll probably be from Panama City over and obviously into Apalachee Bay, where they'll see the strongest winds. For us this morning, things are pretty quiet. High pressure is in place. There's been a couple offshore showers, but not much onshore. Upper 60s, low 70s out there to start the day, so not doing too bad there. Here's your next 10 hours. Temperatures are going to heat up. It's going to be a lot. Today is going to be great. It's going to be hot, but it's going to be a good day with plenty of sunshine, relatively dry conditions, temperatures in the 90s. Not too bad at all for us here on our Tuesday. Now, obviously, we're going to continue to track potential tropical cyclone number 9. A lot more on that and look at the modeling coming up.
All right, Matt, thank you. It is now 7:30. In times like this, boat owners and marinas, who are often in competition with one another, work together to make sure everyone who needs a secure slip gets one. The team at the wharf has been preparing the docks and filling those reservations. The marina is ideally situated in that it's off the Intracoastal Waterway, and with its new docks, it can accommodate a large variety of vessels.
There's a lot to consider. I mean, you've got a big boat. Some of these boats can't be hauled out. Some can be hauled out. And there's only a few places around that can haul their boats out. So they're going to need somewhere that they can tie up and stay in the water.
Florida Fish and Wildlife is urging boat owners to haul boats out or move them as far away from the tidal waters as possible over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Let's get us out to the tropics right now. The hurricane hunters are currently flying around in this system. They found winds of 51 miles per hour, but what they have not found is a tight low-level center. So that's why this is still potential tropical cyclone number 9 rather than Helene. They have to see a tight low-level center. It just doesn't have it yet. So we won't have a named storm just yet. It's going to take a little more time for it to organize itself. But you can see the winds are 51 miles an hour. So once it does organize that low-level center, it's going to go immediately to becoming Helene. It's going to skip past the tropical depression stage here for this storm. Low level, there's where we're at right now with the storm. It's moving to the northwest here at around 9 miles per hour. It has picked up a little bit of forward speed and is headed basically for the Yucatan Channel between the Yucatan and the west coast of Cuba. And then it'll work its way into the Gulf of Mexico, and all systems are go for rapid intensification. The water temperature is extremely warm, low shear in the southern Gulf. That will allow for rapid intensification and it'll make landfall of a major hurricane very likely, and that'll happen here in the Apalachee Bay area of the northeastern Gulf, basically the same spot that Idalia made landfall last year. Here's one of the models. This is our Graph IBM model. It does really well in the medium term with these storms, and it's showing the storm going through the Gulf on Thursday, making a landfall Thursday evening once again in the Apalachee Bay region. Very much the same spot that Idalia made last year. This area is extremely vulnerable to storm surge, and they're going to see massive storm surge because the winds with this, as it cranks up here, as it starts to rapidly intensify, these are all hurricane force winds, major hurricane force winds wrapping around that center. That's going to be making landfall there on Thursday evening. So we anticipate storm surge here of over 10 feet in spots. Now, last year with Idalia, Cedar Key had a record storm surge just under 9 feet. They're forecasting basically about the same or more for this storm. So that's very unfortunate for them. It's going to cause massive damage. The other thing I'm really beginning to get concerned with is the rainfall forecast, because as it rapidly intensifies over that very warm water, it's going to pick up copious amounts of moisture. And I'm not just worried about it down there. Up here in the Appalachians, where the mountains are, those mountains will help squeeze out rain. That rain has to go down the mountains. It gathers in streams, gathers in the rivers. We're probably going to see massive flooding problems across parts of the southeast. This is going to dump copious amounts of rain. This is going to be, that may end up being the top story of this storm, is how much flooding will end up out of this, and life-threatening flash flooding going through the mountains, going down to those streams, because when those mountains gather it up, funnel it down quickly into those streams. We're talking probably major problems up there in the Appalachians with that rainfall. So that's something else to consider. If you're doing some traveling this weekend, heading up to Atlanta or maybe to the mountains, could be some serious problems up there. You may want to rethink that, and as that storm is, they're going to be dealing with it, and it's going to create quite a mess over the weekend. Our rain will happen on Wednesday and Thursday. We will not see flooding rain in our area. Breezy winds, but below tropical storm strength. Of course, the track is still subject to some change, but not massive changes. So really for us, I think the surf issues, the rip currents will be the biggest impacts for us across our area. Otherwise, we're kind of on the outside looking in and not going to see a whole lot out of this system. It'll be more off to the east of us. Like I said, we will get some rain, a few scattered showers on Wednesday. Thursday, we'll have a few rain bands working their way through, but it will not be an all-day thing for us in our area. And of course, the farther east you live, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa counties, the higher chance of rain you have because you're closer to the storm. As what it looks like as we go into the weekend. Our weekend looks great, but like I said, boy, if you're going plan on going up to the Appalachians this weekend, change those plans. I'm thinking there's going to be massive flooding up that way, and they're going to be dealing with major issues as that storm winds down and dumps a bunch of rain across the southeast. Sunny, hot, but obviously we're tracking this tropical system that's going to have a major impact not only on Florida, but for probably a good bit of the southeast. I think we're going to be talking more in the days to come about how much rainfall this thing is going to bring, and it could be a very serious issue for a lot of folks way away from the coastline that may not even be thinking about what they're going to be experiencing here coming up. All right, so let's go ahead and check out the tropics. Got low pressure down there. That is, of course, potential tropical cyclone number 9. The hurricane hunters are currently flying around. They just found a wind speed of 60 miles per hour, so that is a solid tropical storm strength wind speed. Thing is, it still doesn't have a good low-level center. They're not finding that. So it hasn't fully organized into what we called Helene just yet. But once it does, it's already going to be a very strong tropical storm. That's why this thing, folks, is going to blow up into a major hurricane. Once it gets out here over the Gulf, it is going to blow up quickly, and it may be one of the most rapidly intensifying storms we've seen. Yeah, it's literally going to be that serious of a situation here with potential tropical cyclone number 9, which once again will become Helene, rapidly intensifying very quickly as it works its way through the Gulf, and then it's going to make a landfall somewhere in Apalachee Bay, which is the northeastern corner of the Gulf of Mexico, the same spot that Category 3 Idalia made landfall last year. I mean, it may make landfall within a few miles of that spot. So that is just insane, and it's terrible for those folks there along what's called the Nature Coast of Florida. This is going to be tracking northward. This is the European model. I've been showing different models all morning long, but boy, they are well in agreement. They've been in agreement for about the last 36 hours. We haven't seen a whole lot of changes. Once again, it's Apalachee Bay. This is early Friday morning for a landfall. And then I know everybody gets so focused on landfall, but folks, when this thing goes inland, it's going to be picking up tons of rain from that very warm water in the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm looking at some of the numbers up here. It's going to be terrible for some spots in the mountains up here as it squeezes out that rain and causes flash flooding. And that will probably end up being the bigger story. And there's probably a lot of folks up here in Atlanta, in the mountains up here, that just have no idea of what's likely to come their way. So hopefully they're getting some warnings about that, but it's likely to be pretty rough because we're expecting a lot of rain out of that system. For us today, things are quiet. We got a hot day. Temperatures will be in the low 90s this afternoon. It's pretty outside right now. It's 72 degrees. Looks good for us. So yeah, we're doing great. But obviously folks down there along the of course, the eastern part of the Gulf Coast are going to be waiting on that storm. Meanwhile, we're going to be hot today. Temperatures well up into the 90s.
All right, Matt, thank you. And Matt just gave us forecast, but if you want to see Matt's forecast any time of the day, Matt and our other meteorologists actually record those, and they put them on our Fox 10 weather app. Y'all, this is a great app. It is a free app that you can download anytime. I want to take a little minute here and show you the radar. I think the radar is super cool. So when I load it up, you can see we can zoom in across the Gulf Coast. We can see Fairhope and Daphne and all the places. But if we zoom out, we can take a look, and that actually shows us the path of the storm that we are watching. Down here at the bottom, you see these 3 little dots. These are different layers that you can put on this. Right now, we have precipitation, which is rain. So you move it, and you can see that there is some rain across the area. But if we change that and say we want to know what the temperatures are, look at that. Pops up anywhere you want to go, tells you exactly what the temperatures are, and you can zoom in and see them. Also, if you're interested in how windy things are, a lot of talk with that with the storm, right? This actually shows on here for you how windy it is. And if you're traveling, check it out. You can get road conditions right here, zooming on in and getting the very detailed information that you may need if you are taking a trip. So it's the Fox 10 weather app. It is free to download. It gives you access to all the weather content 24/7. And Eric, this radar, pretty cool.
Definitely comes in handy right now, especially. Thanks, Sarah. Well, at 8:04, we continue to watch and track that potential storm in the Gulf. A state of emergency has now been declared for the state of Florida. Fox News' Vanessa Pacheco joins us live in the studio. Vanessa, good morning. What can you tell us about this executive order?
Eric, good morning. Governor Ron DeSantis has declared a state of emergency for 41 counties in Florida, including Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa County. So the state of emergency spans from Naples all the way to Pensacola. Starting this morning, every state agency will be pulling together resources. That includes things like making sure there are state and National Guard members ready, generators in place, and linemen ready to restore power. Center. Florida Division of Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie says even though this storm is about a month and a half after Debbie, he's confident the state is ready.
We have always been preparing this year that we were going to have a multiple storm hit. I asked my team to be ready for the 2004-2005 season combined, which that's a total of 6 storms.
Governor DeSantis is urging Floridians to prepare now for the storm. He says the biggest threat would be storm surge, heavy rain, coastal flooding, and damaging winds to the parts of the Gulf Coast. Sarah.
All right, Vanessa, thank you. At 8:05 new this hour, residents and visitors in the St. Marks area in Florida not taking any chances. They are preparing for whatever could be heading their way. Brian Miller says they'll be staying in Tallahassee, and if things look bad there too, they plan to head even farther north to Georgia.
Yeah, we're nervous. It's, the biggest storm I think that's been projected lately coming our way. So we're preparing, like we always do, expecting the worst and hope it's not.
And the Millers aren't the only ones preparing. Some residents who live in campers in St. Marks are planning to bring those to higher ground and stay potentially at a friend's house or family, while others are filling up sandbags to protect their properties from flooding.
As more information becomes available about the disturbance in the Gulf, some folks in Northwest Florida are also feeling a little anxious. The beaches will have a high risk of deadly rip currents. Some folks in the Panhandle are getting ready for possible impacts by filling up more than their pantries, stocking up on water and canned goods. Others are taking advantage of the free sand being offered by the counties. Experts say that regardless that what happens with a major hurricane expected to move through the Gulf, everyone needs to pay attention.
I mean, it's just getting the bare necessities like water and then like canned goods and stuff. So we've been stocking up on water because we have everything else.
Santa Rosa County has 4 sandbag filling locations, which we have for you on our website at fox10tv.com.
Many boat owners along the northern Gulf Coast are already taking precautions. The team at the wharf is preparing the docks and taking reservations for transient vessels. Meantime, down the road, Orange Beach Hardware is stocking up on tarps, or is stocked up on tarps, generators and batteries, and they have been since the beginning of hurricane season. The store manager says customers are aware there's a storm brewing to the south.
Most of our customers that come in here
All right, here's a live look down in Orange Beach. Water is calm and it is quite pretty down there to begin the day, and probably won't even be all that crowded on our beaches today, and we're going to have good conditions, so why not make it a beach day if you can? It is going to be pretty out there. Meanwhile, obviously we're keeping an eye on what's happening down in the Caribbean. We're watching potential tropical cyclone number 9 work its way off to the north and west. Here's the latest from the hurricane hunters. They just found a wind speed of 60 miles per hour. They're currently flying around in loops. They're searching for a low-level circulation, and right now they've only found a broad one. They haven't found a tight low-level circulation. That's why this is still potential tropical cyclone number 9 and not Helene just yet. Even though the winds certainly are tropical storm strength, it hasn't sort of wrapped itself up yet into a tropical system. So it's still going to take a little bit more time for that to happen, but it will happen eventually. It's just a matter of time. And then once it gets that, it's going to be rapidly intensifying. Like I said, already got 60-mile-per-hour winds. That's not a good sign, because that means once it hits the southern Gulf, it'll probably already be pretty close to being hurricane strength, if not hurricane strength, and then it'll blow up quickly into a major hurricane as it continues to travel north through the Gulf and then make a landfall over here in the Apalachee Bay region of Florida. Now, the cone does go out to about Mexico Beach and down towards Tampa as well, but most of the models are pretty well zeroed in on Apalachee Bay here in the northeastern corner of the Gulf. I'll show you one of those models. This is the Graph IBM model, and it shows it kind of tagging the Yucatan a little bit, so that might help some, but probably not enough. And then it's going to work its way across extremely warm waters, low wind shear, perfect conditions for rapid development, and that's what we're going to see out of this, likely making landfall as a major hurricane, excuse me, in about the same exact spot as where Idalia made landfall a year ago. So this is just a terrible situation for those folks at what we call the nature coast of Florida. It's a very rural area. It is not a very high populated area. In fact, it's the lowest populated area outside of the Everglades in Florida. So it won't impact as many people as it could. But once again, they're still recovering from Idalia last year, so it's going to be a bad situation for them. And not only is it going to be bad I'll show you more of this along the coastline, they're going to be seeing storm surge 10 to 15 feet. Last year with Idalia, Cedar Key here got a record storm surge of just under 9 feet, and they're predicting at least that or maybe more for this one. Also, another big problem that we're going to see out of this is going to be the rainfall, not just along the coastline, but we're going to see massive amounts of rain inland, and particularly up in the mountainous regions where that rain can funnel down and cause flash flooding. And we may actually see more damage up here, at least dollar-wise, from flash flooding. And it could be a very deadly situation. And I know a lot of folks just don't think about sort of the inland consequences of hurricanes, but it is going to be a huge problem in and around Atlanta, maybe up around Columbus and Charlotte. So it is going to be a rough go of it, and hopefully those folks are getting some warnings about all that, because it is going to be bad. For us, things aren't going to be that bad. We're going to have some rough surf we're going to have to watch out for. We are going to have some rain bands move through here, mainly on Thursday, but our breezes will stay below tropical storm strength. So we're going to be doing okay, while the other parts of the Gulf Coast obviously are going to be dealing with devastation. We got high pressure in place right now. We got a hot day ahead. Temperatures will be in the 90s. Tomorrow, a few scattered showers. Thursday, a couple of rain bands moving through. Now, it won't be all day long, so don't worry about that, but we will have some rain around on Thursday. That clears out on a Friday, and the weekend actually look really good, so go ahead and make your plans.
It's now 8:44 and we continue to keep track of the tropics. Ahead of what will most likely become Hurricane Helene, the state of Florida has activated its price gouging hotline. The state's price gouging hotline applies to items and services essential to getting ready for or recovering from a storm within the areas of a declared state of emergency, which includes Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties. Now, anyone who suspects price gouging can report it to the Florida Attorney General's office by calling this number 1-866-966-7226. Now, you can also report it online at myfloridalegal.com.
It is now 8:45 and we are keeping track of how things are shaping up weather-wise today, looking ahead to the week. Right now, it's nice outside.
Beautiful start again this morning after a great weekend. And Matt, it looks good now, but we know that things will have to change.
Yeah, things are definitely going to change because of this system developing down in the Caribbean. Of course, this is potential tropical cyclone number 9. Hurricane hunters are currently flying down in it. That is Miss Piggy. That's actually the name of the hurricane hunter plane. Miss Piggy's flying around right now. It's found winds of 60 miles per hour. So that is solidly tropical storm strength. What they're having a harder time finding, though, is a low level tight circulation. Doesn't quite have that just yet, but even without it, it is intensifying. That is just a very bad sign. It will come together later today. It'll get that low level center. And when it does, it'll become Helene. But it'll already be a pretty powerful tropical storm by the time it takes that name, and then it won't be long before it becomes a hurricane. Here's what it looks like right now. It's moving to the northwest at 9 miles per hour. It's basically headed for this chute here, right between the Yucatan Channel is what it's called, between the Yucatan Peninsula and the west side of Cuba. And then once it hits that southern Gulf, it is going to rapidly intensify. There's very warm waters, very low wind shear. It will grow into a major hurricane. And it's not just the intensity that's going to be the problem here. It's also going to be the size. It's going to blow up into a very large hurricane, and a hurricane that'll have a ton of moisture with it as well, because all that warm air going into it will also be creating rain. So the path, this hasn't changed, folks. It's headed towards Apalachee Bay, the northeastern corner of the Gulf of Mexico, almost the same exact spot that Idalia went in. I mean, it could come in within a few miles of where Idalia made landfall just last year. So that's just terrible news for them. Once again, it's going to be growing in size and also with rainfall, and that's why I think we're still going to get some rain out of this. Usually if we're this far east of a storm, or west of a storm I should say, the storm is that far east of us, usually we don't get a whole lot of rain because we'd be on the dry side of it. But we're going to get some rain bands out of this because this thing is going to be super wet. There's going to be a lot of rain that's going to be dropped by this storm, and also once again it's going to be very large in size. So these rain bands will be expanding out for hundreds of miles from the center of this storm. So this is going to be a very bad storm in a lot of different ways here for the southeast Florida. And once it makes this landfall, once again with ferocious winds, it'll move inland and dump copious amounts of rain. There's going to be a huge storm surge, 10 to 15 feet. Last year, Cedar Key got nearly 10 feet from Idalia, and they're forecasting the same or more this time around. So a very serious situation. There's the rainfall. It's not just at the coast. There's going to be flash flooding well up into the Appalachians, and where those mountains squeeze out that extra rain and then drop it down into streams. There's going to be deadly flash flooding. We don't talk about this enough, but the inland rain, the inland flooding with this storm will likely cause more damage and more death than its landfall. So this is going to become a serious situation. And if you're planning on traveling up this way this weekend, change your plans. It's going to be very, very nasty up there from the remnants of that storm as it continues to pound through the southeast. It's going to be a lot of major issues from this storm that we'll have to continue to track.
All right, Matt, thank you. It is now 8:48.